Everyone thinks they know the Amy Winehouse story of the tattooed singer with the beehive whose life spiraled out of control and who refused to go into rehab. Tonight, we reveal the inside story from those who knew her.
We do think, where is it going to end up? And we don't know where it's going to end up.
She found love in a drug-fueled relationship that inspired her music.
I threw away my first love. Without heroin, how different our lives would have been. It'd be amazing.
She was an international superstar.
5 Grammy Awards. No notoriety or controversy could take that away from her.
But what did she find so attractive in the man that many blame for her destruction?
Soon it was just all about drugs, drugs, drugs.
This is Amy's untold story.
If I died tomorrow, touch wood, you know, I would still feel fulfilled in a way.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, let me see what...
Amy Jade Winehouse was born in September 1983 in the North London suburb of Southgate.
In other words,
She came from a loving Jewish home. Her father, Mitch, a cab driver with a passion for Frank Sinatra, would have a huge influence on Amy's future career.
He would sing to her Frank Sinatra songs, and as she got to know them, he'd sometimes leave a line out, and she'd sing that line to him. You know, this is when she was very young. This was almost preschool years. So there was lots of music around in the house.
Her family were keen for Amy to make the most of her musical talents. And so, at the age of 9, Amy enrolled at the local stage school. Even then, her teacher knew she had incredible potential.
She just liked singing and dancing, and she dreamed of being famous. But she had a spark in her that you could see really at that early age, where you just knew, hey, you know, this girl, she could be something special.
The Amy Winehouse back then wasn't short of confidence either.
Amy was not shy or quiet. She was quite gutsy, and she liked to push boundaries. I remember I caught her playing with tarot cards in the church hall. Now, I just went up to her and I said, Amy, I'm sorry, you can't play with tarot cards in the church hall. And she just looked at me and she went, but I'm Jewish.
While Amy was excelling on stage, things weren't so good at home. Her parents got divorced. But Amy was determined to fulfill her dreams. She wanted nothing more than to sing on stage.
First time I met Amy, like Soho girl, little girl, I said, it's a £3 admission on the door, and this time for the band. She said, I don't have money. I said, I tell you what, next time you come, please bring £3 with you. Half an hour later, she said to me, can I sing? I said, please, show me what you can do. And she jumped in the stage to jam with the band, and the moment she started to sing, wow, this girl, she's going to be a star one day.
Amy's perseverance was beginning to pay off. Could her life's ambitions soon become a reality?
My name is Amy.
Amy who?
Amy Winehouse.
You're going to be a top singer, yeah?
I don't know.
She used to play in the evenings, you know, just get a little slot in a small pub or whatever, and people started noticing her talent. And it was once she performed with the National Youth Jazz Orchestra and was spotted by a scout of Simon Fuller, that's when she then became a professional musician.
Just to be stronger than me. You've been here 7 years longer than me.
At the age of 20, Amy released her debut album, Frank, named after her idol, Frank Sinatra.
Comparison to who you think I am, you always want to talk it through. I don't care. I always have to comfort you when I'm there.
It was a critical success, Her gritty voice, coupled with her heart-on-sleeve lyrics, singled her out as a truly original artist.
I wouldn't write anything unless it was directly personal to me, just because I wouldn't be able to tell the story right or really fill out the song with words, because I wouldn't have done it. So, you know, all of it is stuff that I've been through, and, you know, and even though some of it is personal in a sad way, you know, I would never let it just be that. It's very funny, like I'll put humour in, I'll always put a punchline in the song, always.
Feel like a lady, yeah, you my lady boy. You should be stronger than me.
Think back to her song Stronger Than Me. You know, her complaint in that song was that she was with a guy who was 7 years older than her, but who was a bit of a wimp, was a bit of a new man. And she was saying to him, you know, you should be stronger than me.
All I need is for my man to live up to his role. Always wanna talk you through. I'm okay.
Stronger Than Me was an award-winning hit. For now, Amy Winehouse had fulfilled one of her life ambitions.
My greatest fear is probably dying with no one knowing of any contribution I'd ever made to creative music. But that's cool, because I made an album already that I'm so proud of, that, you know, if I died tomorrow, touch wood, you know, I would still feel fulfilled in a way.
But things were about to change.
Amy.
With her newfound confidence, Amy ditched her management company. She decided to do it her way, and the new Amy Winehouse was born. The skirts got shorter, tattoos appeared, and she acquired her now trademark beehive.
The beehive came along because she wanted to directly emulate the acts of the 50s and the 60s, those sort of black girl bands who would quite often have a beehive and more of that look.
Now everyone wanted a piece of Amy.
At the time, a lot of the people around it was more pop music. I think you had Girls Aloud, maybe Still Steps and things like that, where it was very nicey-nicey, and nobody dared slag anybody off, say anything controversial. So for us to see Amy with the massive hair, the makeup, the tattoos, straight away she was striking. You looked at her on a page, and as soon as you got any pictures of her, you knew they were going to go on your page straight away.
Amy was now front page news. She was now dating the man who would change her life and music forever. Blake Fielder Civil. And tonight, for the first time, we'll hear his untold story.
It's no way to live. You know, you can't sustain love for each other when you're constantly fucking fighting over a bit of gear.
I cheated myself like I knew I would.
Amy Winehouse was now the talk of the town. But distracted by her passionate relationship with Blake Fielder Civil, music was not on her mind.
Once you've opened the door to it, you know, you're aware of what it feels like. Probably only a matter of time before you come back to it.
She started down a road that would only end in trouble.
After Frank, Amy, in a sense, retreated within herself to a degree. She did carry on sort of doing some career things like appearing at festivals, and she got nominated for awards, but she very much retreated within herself. She felt a little bit wounded by her first experience with fame and musical success. And so she spent a lot of time in pubs, playing pool, kind of hanging out with people.
And it was in a pub she got to know a former grammar school boy, Blake Fielder Civil. The son of a teacher, Blake grew up in Nottinghamshire. Now living in London, Blake was already experimenting with illegal substances. For the first time, Amy started using hard drugs, something she'd always disapproved of in the past.
We're in a pub called The Champion. She showed me a bit of the album, like I listened to it, and I think, you know, I had a bit of coke. One of my pals had a bit of coke and she wanted some. And I was just like, you know, what do you want that for? And she just, I don't know, she just kind of acted like she thought she was a bit too cool for school with it. And it just kind of pissed me off. I was just like, why are you doing that? It's not something that you'd pick up at 20 odd. You know, if you're going to do it, you start when you're young at least. you know, then you can blame it on being a fucking div when you're a kid. No one really wants to be picking up, you know, drugs at 23, 24. And as far as I know, she kind of just only took it on certain occasions. She didn't always take it when I was with her. It took months before, well, maybe 6, 7, 8 months before she got bad.
Their on-off relationship intensified, and so did the drug taking. Amy's friends were concerned.
Blake is the love of her life. At the same time, it's like love and hate relationship. Maybe she was hoping that one day he will be honest with her, but you know, the dog's tail never goes straight. And do you really have to have rotten relationship to write music like this? You know, someone like Amy, she deserves better man, better decent guy who love her really so much.
When I met her, she used to smoke a fair bit of puff, but it was just, I think that was just like the kind of music she was into and the kind of scene she was like, you know, all about was just more about smoking puff. And it wasn't, I never saw her like smash it. It was just, you know, every now and then she'd be smoking it. Every time I saw her after that, yeah, pretty much. Or it could be suggested, you know what I mean? I'm not fucking innocent, you know, it's not that. I didn't need any encouragement to, you know, to sniff Charlie. But yeah, it seemed like that was just part of what she did now. I mean, she was drinking a lot and she was snorting a lot of cocaine, yeah. I was drunk myself at the time, but it was always a bit like, fucking hell, what's Amy doing? She was worse than any of us for the drink. And so, like, when she started getting on the coke, I mean, it was just double bad. We loved each other intensely and probably, you know, in a really, really unhealthy, codependent way. And we probably called it all sorts of things, passionate and fiery and whatever. But I mean, sexually, it was spot on, I guess.
The only problem was that he also was seeing another woman at the time, and they had lots of breakups. They were very much an on-off relationship, and one of the key times that they broke up was when he decided to go back to the original lover that he'd been with when he met Amy, and this got immortalised in the song "You Go Back to Her and I'll Go Back to Black."
The trauma of her private life had inspired the platinum album Back to Black. Amy was now a household name.
She came out with the amazing vocals, the look, the beehive, the eyeliner, makeup, and it just got everyone talking. She didn't seem to care about what anyone thought of her or realise just how talented she was.
Back to Black became the UK's best-selling album in 2007, winning the 23-year-old Amy a Brit Award for Best British Female Artist.
It's very pleased to be acknowledged, definitely.
You'll be partying backstage together later?
It'll be fun, yeah, definitely.
She's a fun girl, you know, she's quite wild, but it's just only with drink and drugs in her. It's just a shame, because she's quite funny and quite... No, she's not. She's very funny, she's very clever, and she's very loving. She's got all these good points about her, but she just hides everything that she's got, all her assets. She just hides them in drink and drugs and sometimes acting like a complete fucking idiot.
Amy and Blake enjoyed partying, but they would take it to a whole new level. They were out of control. Their wild nights of excess had taken a dangerous new turn.
I think the first time she took heroin, we were in a hotel in East London. We'd met up and we were just having one of our, like, you know, mad little nights. We had a bottle of rosé champagne, had a bath. I only had like a couple of stones of crack and a few bags of bran for myself, and I was smoking it, and she said, "Can I try some?" And I was kind of out, you know, I was out my fucking nut. And I said, "Yeah, of course."
And then, in 2007, Blake formalised their relationship.
I had a bit of money coming from some electrical goods I got rid of, and I went straight to Tiffany's. I had the idea in my head that I was going to propose to her, and I thought, like, if I'm going to get her a ring, it's got to be from Tiffany's, you know. It's right chavvy and it's up Amy Street, really. I just got on one knee in the living room. I was nervous as all hell, you know, I was shaking. And she said, yes, then no, then yes, then no. And then we got married a couple of weeks later, you know. But I could tell she meant it.
The couple flew to Miami, where they were married in a civil ceremony.
We went to get our licence from this Miami registry office. We went up in a lift. There's a little makeshift altar. And just stood under it, realised what we were doing, just squeezed each other's hands and got married. I think I had her grandma's ring, which was a lovely ring with like kind of diamonds in it, and she had the engagement ring. We just took them off and put them back on. Yeah. And then got in the lift all giggling. It was just like, wow, how's that happened? Couldn't believe we both done it, you know.
Given how talented Amy was, and that Blake was not sort of that ilk, a lot of people have asked why she would choose to be with someone like him, what the attraction was. I think there were a number of things. She liked a notorious guy, and he clearly had that from the start. And I think the drugs very much locked them together. It was like love was the drug.
Back in the UK, Amy and Blake's drink and drug-fueled binges found them caught in the middle of a media scrum.
We started seeing pictures of them out all the time, falling about, you know, being in a total wreck. And then obviously all the stories started to hit the headlines about the drug taking, about the depths of despair that the relationship was in.
Only 3 months after they were married, things reached a new low for Amy. They were photographed leaving a central London hotel, and the harrowing images of the scarred and bloody couple caused a media sensation.
There was one particular picture from, I think they were coming out of the Sanderson Hotel, and they'd obviously been out. They looked a right state. They were covered in cuts and bruises. There was blood all over them, the blood on her pumps. And it was just, as soon as you saw that picture, it was like we've not seen anything like that. There's something seriously wrong here. It kind of changed after that picture. It wasn't about... After that, it stopped being about Amy's music and her voice and everything, and it was about that there's something wrong here within this relationship, within herself, really, that she needed help.
And now the man at the centre of the storm tells his side of the story.
I mean, there's this kind of famous photo where she's walking around with blood on her ballet pumps. There's all this bollocks about her injecting herself between her toes. Yeah, there'd been I think we'd had some mad argument. Oh, I was out of our fucking nuts, and we'd had some argument. I smashed a bottle and just took a chunk out myself, and I think she just looked at me and out of love or fear or whatever it was, or just some fucking weird sense of loyalty, just did it to herself. And I remember just being like, well, I was kind of pissed off. I thought, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, from then on, I think she was doing it sporadically. I don't think it was something she did, but I mean, it's just an ultimate sense of frustration, I guess, for her. Just feeling really frustrated, really trapped, probably really isolated and lonely. You know, she's probably the loneliest person I've ever met. You know, it's just a way to put something inside on the outside. Just say how she's feeling without actually, saying it. She's not that good at describing how she feels, despite singing well and writing good songs. You know, I've never really heard her say how she feels properly.
Self-harm is often a sign of deep-seated anxiety, and again would have shown that she lacked that inner self-esteem and, to a degree, the outer self-confidence. It also, of course, gives you pain, and the pain and pleasure axis are quite close. So self-harming is quite similar to the sort of high that a drug will give you. It actually gives you pleasure while you're doing it. Again, you're inevitably leaving scars. But the time you're doing that self-harming, it's almost the intensity of the pain that is pleasurable. It's very, very hard for people to understand who have never, ever considered doing something like that.
The relationship had changed dramatically. They were now totally dependent on each other. Amy toured, and Blake provided the drugs.
As mad as it sounds, it was the only thing I was bringing to the table for a while. Because, I mean, I couldn't match her financially. I mean, I liked it when I was the only one that could make Amy laugh and that, and the only one that could make her go on stage and little things like that. But soon it was just all about drugs. And I thought, well, at least I can go out and score. Because without me, she'd be sat there in bed all day, you know, she wouldn't be moving. I loved crack and smack more than I did Amy, and she the same.
Amy's 2007 European tour came to a crashing halt in Norway when they were arrested for the possession of cannabis. Disastrously, it meant Amy would be unable to go to the States to attend the Grammy Awards. But it was Amy's drug addiction that was at the top of her father's concerns. Family and friends had tried unsuccessfully to get Amy into rehab. Desperate, Mitch Winehouse appeared on national television to express his fears and frustration.
We do think, where is it going to end up? And we don't know where it's going to end up. But the moment that she decides that enough is enough, all of the help that she needs will be in place. You know, her family are there, the doctors are there, the facilities there. Should she wish to make use of it.
He walks away, the sun goes down, he takes the day, but I'm wrong, and in your way, in this blue shade.
In 2007, the couple were forced apart. Blake was remanded in custody over bribery allegations. Amy was now alone.
Blake then got arrested, and at the time we thought this might be a good thing for Amy. Obviously, the separation between the two, could get help from the family, concentrate on the music again. But instead of seeing Amy get back to where she should have been, she deteriorated even worse quite quickly, actually. Within the next few months, we saw more pictures of her going out, getting drunk. She dramatically dyed her hair blonde, lost so much weight, and it became apparent that she couldn't basically live without Blake. Even if you thought they were bad together, then it was almost worse, the fact that he'd been taken away from her and ripped apart.
You have to look back at the concerts before then and see what an influence he had. He'd proved a real crutch, because although Amy was a very accomplished live performer, she was quite a nervous one. So after he went to prison, she then had this long tour to do, and on the first one she arrived late, you know, off her face, and the audience got very frustrated and would boo. And then for the rest of the tour, it just became, or the subsequent few dates, it just became a farce. And so quickly the tour got cancelled.
With Amy's reputation now in tatters, she returned home and went into meltdown.
This was the low point for Amy. At that time, people were saying that she is going to kill herself. This is going to be the end.
The true extent of Amy Winehouse's self-abuse and long-suspected drug problem was about to hit rock bottom and turn her into a global outcast. This shocking video shows the depths to which the frail and lonely 24-year-old had now sunk. However, this time, her husband Blake was nowhere to be seen. He was behind bars awaiting trial. But his toxic influence hangs over her. Their wedding photo is seen behind. She looks thin and frail, with bleached blonde hair. Now, for the first time, Blake Fielder Civil reveals the inside story behind Amy's shocking video, which so outraged Britain and the world.
There's no privacy in that house. Any opportunity anyone's had, they've sold the story.
Well, guys, come on, privacy, yeah?
That was my mate that filmed her. I was inside at the time, so I'm innocent of that one.
Blake says drink and drugs were all part of their Camden lifestyle. Excessive binge drinking and drugs abuse sometimes brought on frightening seizures. He even witnessed Amy having a fit, only to recover and then carry on partying.
Just general rock and roll behaviour, I guess, but I mean, shocking, like being a bit more mature about the situation would probably be like having seizures and just carrying on.
But Amy's father, Mitch, recalls a time when his daughter was anti-drugs.
She was a complete opponent of hard drugs. In fact, she got up and said that she couldn't understand why people in the music industry took hard drugs, and that changed about 6 months ago when she got married to Blake. And I'm not saying it's Blake's fault. What I'm saying is Amy's responsible for her own actions. However, it's a fact that the hard drugs coincided with their marriage.
The extent of Amy's addiction was now out in the open. It would lead to one of many arrests. Her whole career now hung in the balance.
When Amy was caught smoking crack, it was a shock moment. We all knew it was happening, but seeing those images being visualised made it incredibly shocking and potent. And also crack took things to a different level with Amy. Cocaine, whether you like it or not, is a drug that we all know is around in the celebrity industry and the music industry. Crack cocaine is something else altogether. And I think it's a drug that everyone instinctively rears back from.
They were just so shocking that you had it in front of your eyes there for all the world to see, and you really thought this could be the end of her career or the end of her life, really.
This was such a big story that actually made the intro of News at 10, and she was basically forced into rehab to have another go at cleaning up.
Singer Amy Winehouse arrived at a rehab clinic this afternoon for what her management says was a routine appointment. Her visit, caught on camera for News at 10, came on the day she was shown in a video apparently smoking crack cocaine.
She just looked so thin and out of it. I remember she had to hold her waistband of her skirt to keep it up. And this is someone who would drop down a grid sideways. You know, she was so thin. And she was being dragged along. It struck me that she was completely out of control. She had no energy. She didn't know what she was doing. She was literally being taken away. And it seemed to me from her eyes, she had no real sense of where she was going.
Regular experienced drug users will learn to develop a cocktail or a mixture of drugs that give them the high that they seek. So that's probably a mixture of alcohol and, you know, classes A, B, C drugs. So they would have learned that crack cocaine gives you a very immediate, piercing sensation, but it doesn't last very well. Heroin can sustain that a bit longer. Sometimes you need alcohol to actually bring you down from a heroin high. So they will just have developed their own balance, sort of self-prescribed a mixture of substances which kept them at the level that they felt they're happiest at.
Amy's scarecrow appearance on the video was a far cry from the sassy beehive diva we all knew and loved. After years of saying no, no, no to her father's offer of help, now Amy herself realised that she had a serious problem. And she finally said yes. This was serious. It wasn't just Amy's musical career that was now hanging in the balance. It was Amy's life. The timing of the Sun expose couldn't have been worse. In 2 weeks' time, Amy was scheduled to perform live at the Grammy Awards in Hollywood, the music industry's equivalent of the Oscars, after she was nominated in 6 categories. The pressure was enormous. How could Amy possibly recover in time? And would conservative America now turn against Amy after the crack scandal?
It seemed that her career was over, because whether you can call it hypocrisy, no one really likes to associate with that kind of drug within the industry publicly, however much they might know it's going on privately. The Sun headline said it all, path to oblivion. I think that's where everyone thought she was heading.
This was the low point for Amy. At that time, people were saying that she is going to kill herself. This is going to be the end.
The scandal had now reached the US State Department, who had turned down Amy's visa request to perform live at the Grammys. forcing a spokesman to explain why.
Why did you reject her visa application?
The State Department believes that she is ineligible for a visa under the terms of the Immigration and Nationality Act.
She was now officially an undesirable and no longer welcome in the US. So she appeared by satellite link from London and courageously surprised everyone by giving the performance of her life. Her singing was back to its best, and she looked great.
It was like a roller coaster where you thought that Amy's career was over, and then she comes out looking amazing and sounding fantastic.
5 Grammy Awards. No notoriety or controversy could take that away from her. That was massive.
Who could have predicted? Suddenly, not only is she a star again, she's an international star, because when you win Grammys, that cranks up your career to a whole new level. You're on a global stage. It's a big deal. And it was a testament, really, to the way that you could never quite predict which way her story was going to go. Both her mother and her father had made no secret of their disdain for Blake. For them to then see Amy publicly and globally thanking him for his support must have stuck in their craw, I'd say.
4 months later, Amy sang for Nelson Mandela's 90th birthday celebration in Hyde Park. She delivered a supreme vocal performance.
It was a very prestigious occasion. As well as performing her own set, then led the ensemble as they sang Free Nelson Mandela, this iconic song. Amy decided for one of the lines to sing Free Blakey My Fella over it, which was a moment of cheek and genius.
But while Amy publicly declared her loyalty to Blake, in private, their once strong relationship was cracking under the pressure.
Standing somebody up 15 times in a row on a prison visit when you live 2 minutes away is just unforgivable. It's just sickening. Just the lack of effort she put in. It's just typical codependent stuff. The nastier she was, the more in love I became.
At first, when Blake was in prison, Amy did go and visit him, and she'd have, very symbolically, her beehive searched as she went in case she was smuggling in drugs and her famous hairdo. But after a while, she stopped going to see him, and he was growing very frustrated, and stories were obviously always in the press about her sleeping with other sort of people, and there were even reports that he was asking prisoners who were being released to go and, beat up Pete Doherty because Pete Doherty was hanging around with Amy. There was just this became a media fascination.
Later that month, Blake's mother, Georgette, in the red scarf, attends Snaresbrook Crown Court. She sees Blake sentenced to 27 months for attacking a pub landlord and attempting to pervert the course of justice. Amy was absent. She sought refuge in the beautiful and exclusive Caribbean island of St. Lucia, where she'd honeymooned with Blake. Rumours were circulating that the 5-year toxic love affair may be finally coming to an end. Amy was photographed enjoying her newfound freedom. Journalist Greg Gobert was sent on a mission to find the truth.
There were reports that Blake was filing for divorce that were getting more and more sort of fervent at the time. My remit was to actually go out there and befriend Amy Winehouse, but the funny thing is that she befriended us the first time we met her.
But it wasn't long before she talked openly about her imprisoned husband, Blake.
I do remember her saying that her and Blake, that they won't be together again, that they can't be together again. She romanticised the whole thing. For her, it was like two star-crossed lovers. It was like Romeo and Juliet to her. She seemed very accepting that the relationship was bad for her, because it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the relationship was destructive.
Rumours were circulating that Amy's estranged husband, Blake, was filing for divorce from his prison cell. He'd allegedly got a woman pregnant whilst in rehab. It was left to Greg to break the news to Amy.
In her eyes, Blake had found happiness, made her happy. That was her initial reaction. Then that sort of parted, and then suddenly there was distress. And she got emotional. She started tugging at a bikini she was wearing at the time. Then she would talk about how much she wanted kids. and how much she longed to have. She said that she had twins in their family and that it was her turn next. It's my turn to find happiness.
6 months later, Amy Winehouse and Blake Fielder Civil divorced. Their drug-fueled 5-year relationship was finally over for good.
It was the love of my life. You know, I married her. I would have spent the rest of my life with her had she not treated me like the way she did. I would never have left her, no matter what.
Amy seemed to be totally obsessed by Blake. It was the hold that he had over her was blamed for all to see. I mean, it might have been a two-way thing. It was easy to paint out Blake as the bad guy, and obviously nobody wanted to paint Amy out as the one doing wrong, really, so it was easy to put it onto Blake. But the relationship, it was, when people say they can't live with them and they can't live without them, do you know, that's never been more blatant and obvious than with Amy and Blake.
I think that I pissed my life out the wall for it, and I threw away my first love, you know, and we kind of grew apart for it. But without heroin, how different our lives would have been. It'd be amazing. I mean, I'm not saying there wouldn't be ups and downs, because, you know, there would, but at least we would have had a chance.
Amy Winehouse returned from the Caribbean to Camden, alone, and according to her family was finally managing to keep off the hard drugs. But she continued to struggle with the demon drink, and in June this year entered the Priory Clinic yet again, only to check out after a week. But what would happen next would shock the world and turn Amy Winehouse into a legend. In Belgrade, Amy Winehouse takes to the stage. Missing her cue, she looks lost and confused, almost in tears. It was a far cry from her triumph at the Grammys 3 years previously.
In recent months, she seemed to have slightly turned a corner after that shambolic performance in Belgrade. She had her new boyfriend. There were a couple of pictures of her just going out for dinner, normal stuff in London. It looked like perhaps this time she'd actually got to somewhere where as a 27-year-old she was a bit more mature, getting a grip and looking forward to the future.
In the final days before her death, Amy appeared alongside her goddaughter Dion. Sadly, it would be the last time she would be seen in public. Just 3 days later, worrying rumours started spreading in Camden Town. Behind the windows of a villa in Camden Square, a tragedy was unfolding.
Having sort of followed her life for so long, I knew that her death had been rumoured several times over the years, so I hoped that this was just another silly rumour that was flying around.
Let me bring you some breaking news now, coming into us from Sky Sources. The singer Amy Winehouse has been found dead in her North London flat, just 27 years old.
Police were called by the London Ambulance Service to a house in Camden Square, Northwest 1, shortly before 16:05 hours today. Following reports of a woman found deceased. On arrival, officers found the body of a 27-year-old female who's pronounced dead at the scene, and I can confirm that the deceased is Amy Winehouse.
Within minutes of the announcement, people started arriving at her home.
As much as in the back of your mind you kind of feel that this was always a possibility, this could always happen, it still was a shock, and I didn't think that she'd be dying young.
As well as friends, fans were also devastated at the news and flocked to Amy's home, creating a poignant memorial. Some left flowers, others left personal messages. Many just shed a tear. Amy's father, Mitch, made an emotional visit to her memorial.
Thank you for coming. This means so much to my family.
Shortly after Amy passed away, Mitch hosted a party at Sam's Club to celebrate his daughter's life.
Last night when her dad came, I couldn't believe that I'm going to face him at all. When he came, he's so strong. He said, Sam, no crying. We're here to sing and to celebrate Amy's life. And we smile. There's no crying. And she will be so happy because she knows she loves me. She loves you so much. She always said, I love Sam, I love Jazz After Dark.
I think people will remember Amy Winehouse in so many different ways. It's tragic not just from a personal view of what's happened to her, but for the amount of talent that she had and the way that she touched people's lives across the world. Again, I think you need to remember that she's only had 2 albums, but yet she's loved across the world. Her lyrics connect with people in such a way, and she is one of the greatest singer-songwriters of our generation, or any generation.
My greatest fear is probably dying with no one knowing of any contribution I'd ever made to creative music. But that's cool because I made an album already that I'm so proud of, that, you know, if I died tomorrow, touch wood, you know, I would still feel fulfilled.
Amy had a vulnerability about her, but that's what happens with great artists, because they can be open and vulnerable, which makes them more in touch with themselves and able to write and perform with integrity and give of themselves. And that is a very special person that can do something like that, a true artist.
According to her family, Amy Winehouse had finally conquered her drug addiction and was looking forward to releasing her 3rd album. As part of her legacy, her father plans to set up a foundation to help young people suffering with addictions. But like other tortured artists, it was those very demons that both inspired her greatest successes and yet also tragically may have led to her downfall.
And from North London, we take the short ride into the centre of town, where one of the candy bar girls seems to have caught the TV bug and reckons it's a presenter's life for her. Well, we'll be the judge of that next tonight on Channel 5. Stay with us.